Breaking tonight. Over 300,000 Britons have flooded the streets in the largest uprising of modern times. 15,000 social homes, once meant for veterans and pensioners, were cleared overnight to build new resettlement zones for migrants. And at the centre of it all, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, accused of taking kickbacks from a $1.8 billion phase of hotel contracts and construction projects, part of a $2.4 billion corruption network. Police were forced to escort him from Parliament under a storm of fury, bottles flying, crowds shouting, "Resign!" This isn't politics anymore, it's collapse. And tonight, Britain has finally had enough. It didn't start in Downing Street. It started back in 2023, before Starmer took power. The Home Office launched the Emergency Migrant Housing Plan in the name of compassion. But behind that name was a business pipeline. 5 contractors were handpicked, each tied to Labour-linked donors. One firm stood out: Westbridge Contracts Limited. They donated $2.7 million to Starmer's 2024 campaign. Weeks later, they were rewarded with exclusive hotel and construction deals worth $620 million. The opening phase of a $2.4 billion national housing network, now under criminal review. Over 15,000 social homes once reserved for veterans and pensioners were repurposed into migrant resettlement zones. This wasn't policy. It was preparation, a financial machine disguised as mercy. And when the ink dried on those contracts, Britain's integrity dried with it. Then came the leak, the point of no return. 217 pages of Home Office files, stamped confidential PM's clearance required, landed in newsroom inboxes. Inside, bank transfers, referral fees, encrypted memos, all pointing back to Westbridge Contracts Limited. As those files spread across the nation, the anger left the headlines and hit the streets. The leak didn't just expose corruption, it unleashed it. By morning, Britain looked like a country betrayed. From Manchester to Birmingham, thousands of veterans and pensioners stood outside the homes they no longer owned. Doors locked, names erased from housing lists. Some clutched service medals, others held eviction letters stamped reallocation order. One of them, a Falklands veteran named Thomas Reed, 67, lost his left leg defending the Union Jack in 1982. He told reporters, "I gave my leg for this country. Now I sleep in my car outside the home they took from me." Local councils admit that more than 15,000 social homes have been cleared since the migrant housing programme began. Entire blocks demolished within weeks, replaced by resettlement zones guarded by private security. Meanwhile, 42 luxury hotels across southern England now house over 32,000 asylum seekers, fully funded by taxpayers. Inside, breakfast buffets and spa services. Outside, pensioners sleeping in cars. The same nation that once built victory from rubble now leaves its heroes on the pavement. Each protest banner isn't just anger, it's loss. Each chant is a warning. Britain's compassion has been sold to the highest bidder. As dusk falls over Westminster, one question echoes through the crowd. How much more will they take before the country takes it back? The anger finally broke its walls. By nightfall, Downing Street was surrounded. Lines of police in riot gear held shields that shook under the pressure of hundreds of thousands chanting, "Resign!" Flares lit the sky red. Sirens screamed against the roar. In London, crowds climbed the gates of Whitehall. In Manchester, protesters carried banners reading, "Homes for Britain, not for deals." Across Leeds and Bristol, government offices glowed with candlelight vigils that turned into marches. Officers were struck with coins, papers, and fury. Dozens were injured. More than 480 arrests were reported nationwide. But the chants didn't fade. They grew stronger, beating in unison like one heart across a nation betrayed. Inside number 10, aides pulled the blinds as the shouting shook the walls. The crowd wasn't asking anymore. It was demanding. What began as protest had become a reckoning. And when the gates finally gave way, Britain crossed a line it could never step back from. Even as chaos spread, the government turned inward. Not to confess, but to contain. Late that night, the Home Office issued a data security directive, ordering staff to erase all files linked to Westbridge. Servers went dark. Hard drives were pulled. At 2 a.m, civil service emails vanished from the government archive. Over 11,000 records deleted in just 4 minutes. A whistleblower captured the screen logs before they disappeared. By dawn, the Prime Minister's press office blamed foreign interference. But digital forensics confirmed the data wipe came from an internal Downing Street address. In Parliament, opposition MPs demanded a full inquiry. Starmer's allies stalled, citing ongoing national security matters, code words for panic. Behind closed doors, legal teams drafted denials. One leaked text from a senior advisor read, "If we go down, we take the Home Office with us." The cover-up wasn't damage control. It was confession by deletion. And as more files vanished, the streets filled once again. Proof that no firewall can contain betrayal. When power feels cornered, it reaches for control. Within 48 hours, emergency orders were signed, granting police expanded powers to restrict gatherings. Curfews hit London, Leeds, and Birmingham. Social media posts mentioning Downing Street were flagged as potential unrest. Police raided the homes of protest organisers before dawn. Dozens of veterans were detained under the Public Order Act, accused of inciting instability. Among them was Thomas Reed, the one-legged Falklands veteran, dragged from his car by 3 officers. Television anchors called for calm. But calm had died days ago. The crackdown turned fury into defiance. Crowds returned, louder, stronger, chanting, "We built this country," through the streets of Westminster. Drone footage showed police lines collapsing near Trafalgar Square as tear gas filled the air. The government called it restoration of order. The people called it a war on truth. By nightfall, the flag over Parliament hung in smoke, and Britain learned what happens when a government silences those it swore to serve. Inside Parliament, the illusion cracked. During a heated emergency session, MPs shouted across the chamber, "Where's the Prime Minister?" The Speaker slammed the gavel until it splintered. Starmer entered under escort, pale, surrounded by police. Opposition benches erupted. "Resign! Resign!" A document was held aloft, the same Westbridge ledger, displayed live on television. Veterans in the gallery stood in silence, one raising his prosthetic leg in protest. The moment froze the room. Then came the motion. A vote of no confidence. Within hours, cabinet members began resigning. 5 in a single day. Financial markets crashed overnight. Downing Street curtains stayed closed. The nation wasn't watching politics anymore. It was watching implosion. Across the country, streets fell silent. For the first time in years, police memorials filled with flowers and Union Jacks bearing the words, "The truth doesn't hint at guilt." Even opposition leaders paused their speeches. It wasn't about parties anymore. It was about the survival of a nation's conscience. Reporters called it the moment of silence. For 67 seconds, the crowd didn't move. Then someone whispered, "For Britain?" And the chant began again, softer, unified, unstoppable. While Downing Street hid behind curtains, the Crown stood in daylight. And for millions, that was enough to remember who they were fighting for. Tonight, the The story isn't about one man's fall. It's about a nation waking up. From the trenches of Falklands veterans to the frozen doorsteps of pensioners, the message is the same. Enough. The £2.4 billion scandal may end one career, but it has rewritten British history. Because once a country sees the truth, it cannot unsee it. The protests aren't fading, they're multiplying. City to city, street to street, voice to voice. This isn't collapse anymore, it's correction. And as the smoke clears over Westminster, one line remains on every banner. We are Britain, and we remember. If you believe truth still matters, subscribe and stay with Brit News, because history isn't ending in these streets. The next chapter starts now.